Well, it's hard to believe that almost 20 years ago, the four of us were sitting around, I think, this very table, right here. My name's Tom Gleisner.
Mary Muirhead.
Pam Roy.
Mandy Sampson.
And do you remember that evening?
I do, very, very vividly. Because you said, if you could do anything you wanted, Pam, in terms of delivering services, how would you design it? And so I went and put together some modeling, and we all agreed, yep, pie in the sky, we're gonna start slower, and now we've surpassed that.
We're still around all this time.
We're still around 20 years later.
We established I don't think we even had the name at that stage, but what became the Learning for Life Autism Centre.
The reason we all came together is because there was really good early intervention care of Pam and Mandy, bringing Pam out from America in the 1990s. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? That's the backstory.
I'm the mother of a child with autism who's now 32, and at the time there were no services available to me for Angus, and he was non-verbal and very difficult. So I went to the States looking for help and found an organisation there that employed Pam, and with time they sent Pam out to work with us for 12 months, and she did, and she helped many, many families at that time. Pam then decided to stay, which was wonderful, and Pam then became one of our founders for Learning for Life.
When you say Pam decided to stay, we've got her passport and basically never given it back.
We did.
We couldn't afford to lose her because there weren't many skilled, trained therapists in Australia at that point, were there, Pam?
No, there were a few, but no, they weren't in abundance.
And you were doing home-based early intervention, weren't you?
Absolutely.
At the time.
I think I was working with 20 families
You were.
across Victoria. So, I got to drive everywhere and meet families, meet the people they employed to deliver the one-on-one therapies, and that was all thanks to Mandy setting up the structure.
So the families were actually hiring and finding their own therapists.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Children in Australia and families had to pay really a lot of money, which was good value because you were doing like 20, 30 hours a week, every week with these children. But there was no funding back then, and so really only people who had, they either mortgaged their house or they had,
They had to be well off to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
There were so many families who just found out about the program and couldn't become part of it because they just couldn't afford it. And it was heartbreaking to see these families do things like mortgage their houses. That was really difficult to see them having to do that, to sell cars, to move to a cheaper location, anything to find the money. And that was really the basis of why when I found you and you were interested in the same sorts of things of being able to fund families who couldn't fund themselves, it was such a relief to find there were other families.
We would just maybe fund one family. I think that was our first idea.
Possibly.
It was like, that would be great. And then we thought a little bit more and thought, that would be such a drop in the ocean. So, and all of us together, we thought it was a social injustice really. And so we set up the charity side of it so that we could fundraise to subsidise programs. Mandy being a doctor and having a research and a clinical background, insisted we do research from the start, which is pretty good, otherwise we would have just rolled along.
Well, our mission was really to help children with autism, kids whose families couldn't afford the full program, and so we wanted to fundraise for that, and Mary has been a remarkable fundraiser over the years. And the other things that for me were really important, that there was no progressive pathway for our therapists to progress to more senior levels to gain qualifications. There weren't qualifications for them. There weren't things they could do to study. And so we set up, as well as part of that, one of our mission statements is that we wanted to set up training for therapists to further their professional life. And then the third thing was research to prove that what we were doing was helping children was incredibly important for us to maintain our standards and our reputation over the years.
My memory of those very early meetings is that we didn't really have a clear game plan or a goal that we were going to get to this particular size or achieve this number of hours of therapy. We just said, let's see what we can do, what we can come up with.
Our mantra all along, one of my mantras is that we do the best we can. So we thought we would do the best we can. Of recent years, the mantra's been expanded. Maya Angelou says, you do the best you can, but when you know better, you do better. So I think we went searching for how we could always do better, always do better.
And Mary's got that as a tattoo. She'll show it to you later. It's quite long. But I think in some ways, I think naivety was our friend. I look back and I go, we had no idea what we were doing. The business side of it, the board.
Excuse me, we have an accountant. She was good.
Actually, Pam, you were an accountant in the previous lives.
And we had board members from that very early stage, even though we didn't call ourselves a board, who had skills, who knew how to do things.
Yes, we found the people with the expertise along the way.
And we did start very small. The first year we only had two children, and
3 or 4.
And I think
the second year we went to 4. Like it took time for us to establish ourselves and get moving.
And I think we only had 3 or 4 staff. And I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges, was there was so much to do. We didn't know going into it what it was going to take. We just did it. We just did it. Yeah. And so we had a few people doing an incredible amount of work. You know, we look back at Naomi and Kathy, and it was absolutely amazing what we accomplished without knowing we were going to accomplish that.
2004, so our 20th birthday, is celebrating setting up the charity and registering the business, setting up as a charity, and doing our first fundraiser.
Yes, well, fundraising, that was probably where we came in, or Mary in particular, because we realised we just wanted to help as many families as we possibly could. And to do that, we needed funds. And Mary, who I don't think had ever so much as organised a school fete.
Kindergarten fundraiser.
Sorry, kindergarten fundraiser expert. But you said, well, I'll see what I can come up with, and the first fundraiser was
on November the 19th, 2004. It was twilight on the balcony.
And it was in a boathouse down by the Yarra.
Melbourne Uni Boathouse.
It was wonderful.
I would not have stepped over the threshold without having you at my side, Tom, because you were our front person. I could hardly barely speak in front of people. It was like, oh no, Tom, you have to say this and you have to say that. And you would host all our events, as you still do. There's no way we would have fundraised without you. So,
Twilight on the Balcony was probably 100 or so people. We had Glenn Robbins dressed as Kel Knight from Kath and Kim at a barbecue. I don't think Glenn has ever done that before.
We put an apron on him and he was cooking the sausages on the balcony.
Yeah, so I mean, sure, there was food
Stayed
poisoning.
in character the whole night.
He did, which was great. So that was, again, I think that speaks to those early days where it was a wonderful combination of enthusiasm and a bit of naivety, and just let's just do it. So we raised some funds, and every time we raised a bit of money, it went straight into funding therapy hours for kids.
The child is in, the Learning for Life children is in the centre of everything that we do, and the village is the idea that there's these concentric circles surrounding and wrapping that child and their family and supporting their family, and that involves the staff and all the people who interact with them and their learning and their development, all the things that each child as an individual needs to learn. And around that is all the schools and where our staff goes out and works within schools, or the educators, all our supporters, the philanthropic people. People come to our events, people who make donations, family foundations, all those things. They're all the circles of our village. So that was probably our biggest, that was one of the things that I find as a big highlight, was building the village.
For me, one of the biggest changes has been the funding models that we've had come and go, and getting some funding, any funding. It seemed remarkable with those early funding models. One was the first one you...
The Faxia Helping Children with Autism
yes, that's
package.
Right. And that seemed like just the greatest thing at that time. And then finally to get the NDIS funding come through for our families has been huge for our families. And I think that's been a huge highlight.
It certainly has. It certainly has had a huge impact and changed the demographics of the families that we work with. So, especially with the NDIS coming to us, families who would never have contemplated doing this type of therapy are now calling us because they have funds to be able to access it. It's created challenges because the funding packages aren't necessarily covering all of the hours that we would like to do from a clinical point of view, but it gives everybody some type of access. And then that's where our philanthropic support comes in. You know, we would not exist if we didn't have the donations, the philanthropic support, the NDIS. We wouldn't be able to keep going.
Absolutely.
When the NDIS first came, we were fortunate to receive funding to have someone do all of the research into the NDIS, what it meant for us, what it meant for the families that we were providing service to. And there was not a requirement that you become a registered provider. So we had families come in and out, but what we realized was that the funding that was coming for kids who had complex needs, in order to deliver those services, we had to be a registered provider. That was an area that wasn't being covered by very many organizations. So we said, as we always did, where's the gap in the services? What can we do to bridge that gap? So we decided to go through the registration process, which was very, very onerous. It was very time consuming.
I think the phrase pain in the arse might have been used.
And we were
And
really
expensive.
And
Well,
expensive.
we actually had to put a staff.
We had to employ
yeah,
a staff member to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a team effort to achieve the registration, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without Victoria Crane.
Yeah.
You know, she was the person that came on. She had the skills to go through and update all of the policies.
And that was in the
needed.
pandemic too, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
It's so incredible when I look back on it. Again, that naivety. The evolution of our services. So every single decision that we have made has been because of the kids. And now, in a more holistic point of view, the families themselves. So we now are able, we have funding to employ a family support manager who actually works with our families, make sure that they're getting the connections that they need. And she has put together a database of all the services by LGA that our families can access. Things, because Learning for Life can't do everything, but we can refer people to other services.
I've loved watching the way Learning for Life has developed in terms of its services. We began basically just doing one-on-one therapy with our kids.
In the home, yeah.
In the homes, which is
And
wonderful.
they were mainly 3, 4 and 5-year-olds.
Yes, that's right. And then I think it's a credit to Pam and the team that the way they've responded to needs when it's presented to us, whether via the therapists or the families. And now we do so much more than just that one-on-one therapy. This is an amazing schools program where we go into schools where there might be a child, one of our kids, but our therapists go in and almost teach the teachers, don't they?
Oh yeah, that's our Inclusion Works program.
If you go back to 2015, there were so many newspaper articles about kids being mistreated. And one of the things in schools and other organizations, and one of the things we thought was, you know what, these people aren't trying to do the wrong thing, but they don't know what to do. So inclusion, unfortunately back then, wasn't as prevalent as it is now. As opposed to working with individual kids, we just started showing the teachers how to develop strategies. There's not a one-size-fits-all. You know?
Which didn't just help the kids who are neurodivergent or the autistic kids, it actually helped all the kids
Everyone, yeah.
and all the teachers in the school.
But it's also led to Sarah Wood's PhD that she's doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And so there will be research coming out of that in the next
with Monash Uni
couple of years.
Yeah, that's right. And that was funded.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah, that was funded through Philanthropy.
Yeah, so partly funded by us.
Yeah, 2 organisations. Yeah, that's right.
And so that's really exciting to see that happen. But we've also got the school age services that are going into the school one-on-one with each child to see how they're going. Yes. And we also have now very early children with early diagnosis and starting as early as 2 really now, aren't they, Pam?
Some of them.
So we've really spread the age group over which we are able to treat children.
I remember one example, we found a lot of our kids, 3, 4-year-olds, would end our program and go on to kinder. And so we came up with this idea of, well, to help that transition, let's create our own kinder transition program. Is that what it was called?
We had a Ready, Set, Go.
Ready, Set, Go. And it was my sister who was at the time a childcare teacher. We set up created our own little kinder and taught our kids the basic skills you need at kinder to sit on the mat or whatever.
Sit and eat.
And that was just, I mean, it's a specific example, but I think it speaks to a more general whole that we find these gaps and we find ways to address them when we can.
What keeps me going is the stories too. Like we sometimes have events and a family will share a story, and that really keeps me going. That personalised, story of the
difference that learning for life has made.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I love hearing the kids' stories and how they're going. And I agree. I love hearing those stories where our therapists have moved on to other professions. They become psychologists.
They've done a PhD,
teachers,
or they've done
PhDs. They've had their own children.
And they've set up a business themselves.
It's just been wonderful to see that progression into life from both parents and children.
And that's that career path you were talking about in the very beginning, was setting it up so it wasn't just something you did while you were at uni, while you were studying to do something else. It's actually become a career in and of itself. That's why, the way we deliver our services, treating every single child, every single
with
family,
their needs,
individual.
And looking at their strengths as well, because that's really, looking at what they're able to do.
What they love to do.
Yeah, and then what they need support. So both. But that's been a change in the landscape, which is a good thing.
And I think that's just helped us to define those skills that our current children need to be able to live their best life. So
5 years ago, for our 15th anniversary, we had a ball that was looking into the crystal ball. We call it the crystal ball. And we asked about hopes and dreams, remember? We asked the families, we asked, the staff, we asked the founders, what are our hopes and dreams for the future of Learning for Life? What are your hopes and dreams for Learning for Life?
That we can continue to grow and find inventive ways of meeting the needs of our families. We continue to listen to our families and our supporters and deliver the extraordinary services that we have been doing for 20 odd years.
I'm sometimes a glass half full, a glass half empty, and sometimes I worry. I'm a worrier. I worry about the future, and as with lots of disability organisations, with the current setting, the NDIS is in a state of flux and reform. So the reforms hopefully will be really, really positive. They will take a while to come in.
But the uncertainty that it gives us about where the funding will come from and how much it will be and who it will be applied to and how we not how we access, but how our families access that funding that they need. I think that has really been apparent within over the last 12 months. And it's been harder and harder for us to look into the future and go, what is ahead of us exactly? How are we going to navigate this? And we realise that we have to be really quite proactive at moving quickly when things do change, assessing things properly, really thinking about it so that we can move quickly. And part of that is really refreshing the whole organisation and saying 20 years we've been here, that we're getting to that time really where we move on and let the next group of people manage.
I'm calling it chapter 2,
Chapter
Mandy.
2,
yeah,
yeah.
chapter 2.
And so we feel like we're now entering chapter 2.
Yeah.
That there will be a change. There have been huge changes on the board in the last 2 years.
We've got a great board.
Wonderful board now.
Yeah, we've had some new members join us.
Huge range of skills,
Yeah.
including parents.
Yeah, that's right.
On the board.
Yeah.
So
So succession planning has been part of the, the last few years.
And so I'm stepping down this year, and I'm so happy that we've appointed a new CEO to step in the next month and to take us into that chapter 2, because really we are an agile organisation, but I think we need people with fresh eyes to come in and say, well, what's possible? We know what the mission is.
It's an exciting time, actually, even though it's uncertain. It's exciting.
exciting.
Yes.
To have new people coming in with their ideas, and so that
but
so
there's
that
stability there as
continue.
well. Emma Miller continues as our clinical director.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Sarah
right.
Woods continues as our allied health director.
Yeah.
And we still have Pam's passport, so
I'm not going anywhere. So I'm still going to be part of the Learning for Life Village forever.
Once in the village, always
Yeah,
in the village, Pam.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the future is looking bright. If not a little bit uncertain, but I think that everyone will be holding each other's hands along the way. So without further ado, I want to thank all the people who've made the 20 years possible, the founders, all the staff, past and present, and all our supporters, everyone who's been to events, donated, all the families who've trusted us with their children, and as you know, as alumni families have also put out the helping hand to the families that have come after them. So happy birthday to everybody.
It's been a journey.
Hooray. Yep,
Yes, happy birthday, Learning for Life.